Okay, thank you very much. I would like to welcome everyone to the Finance Committee meeting of Tuesday, September 7th, 2021. It is 1:04 p.m. and we are live on a digital platform. We have a number of agenda items today. Tell you the precise number here, 11 agenda items, and I'm not quite certain that we'll make it to item number 10, the finance second quarter, how the rest of the agenda goes. But we're going to kick it off here with items number 2 and 3, both of which involve some lovely members of the public who aren't going to be obliged to sit through the rest of our finance meeting. Mr. Slaughter, Mayor Slaughter, if you'd roll it then with item number 2, a resolution authorizing the execution of an agreement between ADA coordinator Janetta Green and the city of Williamsport.
Sure. Good afternoon, Finance Committee. What you have before you is a resolution authorizing execution of agreement between ADA coordinator Janetta Green and the city of Williamsport. This is per our consent decree related to SIL and the city for ADA upgrades and all of that in our various buildings, City Hall, and now Trade and Transit 1, 2, and RVT. So per the consent decree, we were required to retain an ADA coordinator. Janetta Green is qualified and certified to perform these duties. And so we have that before you today for your consideration. It was reviewed both by Alston White, our city solicitor, and also Mr. McPartland, our SIL solicitor. Or I should say our solicitor related to the SIL consent decree.
Thank you, Mayor Slaughter. I guess I'll turn this over first to Bonnie and Adam. Bonnie, Adam, do you have any questions?
Yes. Mayor, you stated that this is also going to incorporate Trade and Transit 1 and 2 and RVT. Is that part of our what we have to be doing?
Well, we just have to make sure that, well, yes, all of our city buildings that are going to be utilized for the public have to be in ADA compliance. Clearly, Trade and Transit 1 and 2 are accessible, but we're going to have Ms. Green and Mr. Derry go through Trade and Transit 1, 2, and RVT just to make sure everything is where it needs to be. For example, we do know one of our electronic door openers is broken, which is in the process of being fixed now. Items such as that. And then City Hall, depending on, obviously, once we get items mitigated, what that will look like. But yeah, any of our buildings that are going to have public use, obviously need to be in the ADA compliant.
The other question, and you mentioned this right now, Mayor, with the remediation that we're doing with City Hall, if it comes back that the building is, say, and I'm using this term loosely, condemned, that we don't go back into there, is there a need for us to have someone go in there and go through the building? Should we not wait until we get the remediation reports?
Right. So, well, no, they will not be going in the building right now, obviously, because it is condemned. So we're working with still their attorneys, our attorneys. Obviously, this is very fluid. So they're well aware that right now, there's not going to be any city services until the administration and city council, work on a plan. We see what the mitigation costs, et cetera, are for City Hall. If and when it is reopened for public use, at that point, then yes, we would have to be ADA compliant. But right now, it would only factor into the buildings that we currently are using for the public to access to make sure they're ADA compliant. So okay. City Hall, at this point right now, City Hall is not included in that because we will not be using that, and that will be condemned until further notice if it's mitigated or not.
Okay.
So what you're saying, Garrick, is that they're in charge of surveying existing city facilities that are with it, that are being used by the public.
Right, and so, obviously train transit 1 and 2 and RVT are much newer. And we're not aware of any, access issues, so to speak, but that doesn't mean there might not be a door handle here or there, or, items such as that. So that's why we have to have, Ms. Green, Mr. Derry go through, say, okay, overall, it's looking great. You need to do, these 1, 2, 3 things right here, and you're good to go. That's just an example, but right.
The other question I have, it's Ms. Green is charging, let's see, the rate is $150 an hour. Is there any estimate of how many hours Ms. Green, that you would feel that this is going to take?
Initially, I put in 33 hours.
And
And
sorry, go ahead. Sorry.
I just wanted to clarify my role a little bit more, if I can do that, Mayor.
Sure, go ahead. Yep.
My role is a little bit different than Mark's role. Mark, and you can clarify this too, Mark is doing more of the physical accessibility. As an ADA coordinator, I'm going to be looking more at programs, services, compliance with practices, I'm also going to be working with whoever the new ADA coordinator will be to make sure they get the training that they need, how complaints are handled, grievance process.
Right,
Yes,
policies
so
and
that's more my focus.
yeah, so she's working with, or she will be pending council approval, like Joe Girardi, Molly, myself, all at council, all of us, to make sure that all of our policies, all the things you just went over right there, are where they need to be related to all of our ADA compliance issues that are currently not in place.
Are you stating then, Mayor, that we're going to have a full-time ADA coordinator on staff?
Well, it will be Joe Girardi. So Ms. Green and I actually talked about this last week. There's trainings available and certifications, and she will work with him on that to get the trainings and certifications needed. So it's not like we're going to go out and hire a separate individual. Joe Girardi, working with Ms. Green, can get the training and certification required to be our in-house ADA coordinator. That way we don't have to outsource it, after, the goal is once Ms. Green and Mr. Derry are done, we have everything where it needs to be related to all of our ADA items, and everything is in-house, and it's, smooth sailing from that point forward. They've got us to where we need to be, and then we can handle it from there.
The estimate of approximate 33 hours, is that including Joe Girardi's training?
That's her time. Yeah, that's her time working with Joe, working with Molly. That includes all of that. Yeah, all the stuff that she's going to do for us, she estimated at around 33 hours.
Okay. I don't have any other questions.
Thanks, Bonnie. Adam?
Yeah, Ms. Green, how much of your work do you plan to do remotely versus on site?
I think that's going to depend on like our first meeting together and having a plan.
Gotcha.
It's not too far for me to drive up to Williamsport, so that's not a problem.
Okay.
But,
gotcha. And Mayor, refresh my memory. This is more so Ms. Green's scope specifically is directly related to the consent decree. Where are we pulling the funding from this from? I don't recall necessarily having this budgeted, but this is also one of those things that, kind of was confirmed or finalized after we did the budget. So, I mean, that is what it is.
Yeah, and we were talking about this earlier too. It may need to be, once we have all the different items in place, a line item transfer, come back to council, because obviously we didn't have a federal lawsuit budgeted in this year's budget. So that's probably most likely what's going to have to happen is we look at areas where we're saving a little bit of money, and we come to council and say, to cover the cost of these items related to the consent decree, we do a line item transfer from X to Y.
Gotcha. That makes sense. I mean, and just from quickly looking at the second quarter financial report, I mean, we seem to be generally coming in under budget, which is good. So I suspect we should be easily able to do that, but nonetheless, just I'm sure you are. Just think through,
We're
where.
thinking initially probably, somewhere around 10,000, 10 to
Yeah.
15, depending on, once they really get into it and how long it takes to get all these items up to speed. But
Yeah.
this is one of those things that come along that you don't have budgeted for, but we also have to obviously adhere to the federal judge's order. So.
Yeah, no, certainly agreed. With both Miss Green's and Mr. Derry's items, it would be preferable. Certainly, let's keep it budget neutral. I think we can do that. So
Yeah, that's the goal. Yeah.
Yeah, let's work hard to do that. That was my really only big question related to Mrs. Green. So, and with Mr. Derry's. So thanks, Liz.
No problem, Adam. And I'm glad you asked it, because that was going to be my question too, I think ideally we should try to get us maybe a slightly better idea of where we're planning to take the funding from, because I suspect there may be a handful of things that we're looking to transfer around this year. And so we should begin to kind of outline where we can find this funding to make it simplest for us, I suppose. And so just to be clear then, Ms. Green, you work in Harrisburg, correct?
Correct.
Okay. And so ideally we'll try to keep as much of this remote, it seems like, as possible.
Yes, I think a lot of it can be remote.
Okay. And Derek, you said that neither Ms. Green nor Mr. Derry will be looking at City Hall currently?
At the moment, no, because it's condemned. So nobody will be allowed in there until administration and council determine. Well, we should have the written report today. I got an email from the company that we should have that report today. And then once we have that, the next step then would be to obviously get estimates on, all the mitigation efforts in City Hall. And then once council, administration, we decide on a path forward, if and when City Hall was reopened, at that point, then yeah, they would have, Mr. Derry would have to go in and do the physical stuff. Ms. Green, most of the policy stuff, whether in City Hall or not, a lot of that will be in place anyway. But as far as the physical aspects of City Hall, that's not going to take place now. Sill's aware of that. We've discussed it. It's been very fluid, obviously. But yes, if it opens, then Mr. Derry would have to get back into City Hall to compile his report on that building.
Got it. And I would expect, what's their timeline on Mr. Girardi achieving all the necessary training to become the city's ADA coordinator?
I would defer to Ms. Green on that.
Well, it's a self-paced thing, but he could definitely do it by the end of this year, for sure. That would be the longest I think it would take him. Especially if he goes to the ADA update that's in 2 weeks, he can get a lot of his training there.
Okay, got it. So I guess then most certainly by the time City Hall were to reopen, our ADA coordinator regardless would be Mr. Girardi. Because I think we're looking at significantly more than 3 months on that, Ms. Green. Anyway, but certainly it sounds as though you're going to provide some invaluable services to us here in the meantime. Okay, I think that's really all I need to know. But Derek, I would say that while I'm okay with okaying this without a firm idea of where the funding's coming from, I would prefer to have a firmer idea by Thursday, maybe a proposal from the administration of where we're going to pull the funding from. It just, it is our job as the finance committee to make certain that the funding exists for a given item. And I would agree with Adam that clearly we're coming in over budget on a handful of revenue streams and under budget on a handful of expenditures. So that's a good thing. But, I think I'd like to see us earmark this as coming from X, simply so that we don't do that thing that I do on my personal financing sometimes, where I earmark 5 things as coming from X and they all take the full amount of money. So making certain that we know where it's coming from, we all agree on that. And that way we don't accidentally spend the pot a couple of times. But that said, Bonnie, Adam, if you don't have any further questions before Thursday's meeting, I take a motion.
Well, I do have one other question.
Sure.
When you say with Joe Girardi, is this going to be, is he going to travel? Is he going to have to be for his training? Or is this going to be all done?
Well, there's a conference, a big conference coming up in Baltimore. But then again, I'll defer to Ms. Green. Outside of that, is there online options available?
Yes, it's online.
So really just the conference itself would be where he'd have to attend.
Yes.
Okay, so then that would have to be put, Mayor, into the expense report also then.
Right, if he goes to that one. If he doesn't though, Ms. Green, he would still be able to attend other stuff, right, and get certified.
He could still do most of it online. Some of it you do need to get in person.
Okay, but yeah, I can, Bonnie, try and get those costs by Thursday for the trainings and certifications. Ms.
Thank you,
Green
because I
probably has some of that.
I don't think that's in the code's budget at all.
Yeah, no, probably not. But again, a lot of this wasn't because we weren't anticipating this consent decree this year.
Right. Thank you, all of you.
Okay. All right. Any other questions out there?
Nope.
Okay, then I take a motion.
Make a motion, we forward to the full body of council with a positive recommendation with the caveat of clarity on earmarking out of the 2021 general fund budget for funding.
I will second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay, then moving on to item number 3, which is an execution of an agreement between an accessibility consultant, Mark Derry, and the city of Williamsport.
Yes,
Mayor.
yep. Yeah, what you have again, very similar resolution authorizing the execution of agreement between Mark Derry and the city for, again, related to the consent decree for an accessibility consultant. Again, per our consent decree, we need an accessibility consultant, and Mark Derry of Eastlake Derry and Associates LLC is qualified and certified in this area to perform these duties per the consent decree.
Okay, excellent. Thank you, Mayor Slaughter. Bonnie, Adam?
Again, I'm going to go first of all with the cost of $200 an hour. Mr. Derry, thank you very much for being here. Would you have an estimate of how many hours you think this would be for all buildings outside of City Hall at this point?
I'd anticipate being in the in Williamsport for 2 days to do the 2 buildings, and you're probably talking 4 days for report compilation and all the things back at the office that I need to do after the site visits, including communicating with Janetta and the things that are called for through the agreement. So you're probably looking at a total of 5 or 6 days at that rate.
When I looked at what you said here, the accessibility consulting and surveying, $200 an hour or contract not to exceed, but you also have the accessibility testimony of $400 an hour with retainer. Could you please explain that?
Sure, you're looking at my fee schedule versus my proposal. My fee schedule lays out my various rates. It's $200 an hour for consulting, training, any of my ADA work, $400 an hour when we go to court and I do expert witness testimony. And what have I got for admin? $75.
Once this is completed, we should be all up to code as far as anything with ADA, right? Is that how, this is where we're heading towards?
Yes.
Exactly, right. Yeah, so we're using him for the obviously the accessibility side of things at this point, and hopefully never we will need to use him as an expert witness in court. So the goal is to avoid that, and and get all of our ADA items in line and up to the current standards and compliance.
That's where I
Yeah,
was getting at. I wanted to stay away from court.
Right.
Oh, yeah. And the goal is to get a big picture of the facilities and what things we need to give attention to. And then I make recommendations on the easiest and most economical way to do that. And so I try to simplify it and make it very straightforward and find the easiest, most reasonable solution for each issue we find.
Yeah, I sat in on a conference over a year ago. It was held in, I think, Seattle at this point. And one of the questions that did come up was ADA compliance with historic buildings and
Okay.
how difficult it is to get ADA qualifications in historic buildings. And that's what we're dealing with City Hall. Have you gone through City Hall at all? Have you seen, I know it's condemned at this point, but are you aware?
I haven't seen your city hall. I've worked on historic structures a lot, and I have a lot of experience for making suggestions that don't affect the historic significance of the building. Alternate routes and different suggestions that we can make, and then talk through it as a group and figure out the best suggestion. But there's ways to work accessibility into the facility without affecting that historic significance. We respect that.
Thank you, because that's one of the questions that I did have, because like I said, sitting in on that conference, it was really interesting listening to some of the difficulties that can come about with it.
Oh,
And
yeah.
how to overcome it.
Yep.
Our other buildings that you'll be looking at are so much newer and already have so much in place.
On the older facilities, I call it pulling a rabbit out of my hat. Because
So
that's what I
therefore-
have to do sometimes is make a suggestion that's a little bit out there or not quite in compliance with a new construction facility, and the ADA allows us to do that. And so we back up what we're doing in writing and have everything we need so that even if we have to make a call on a historic facility, we can do that and prove to anyone who asks why we did it and here's how it was reasonable.
Thank you very much. I really appreciate that, because I think we do love our city hall. We really do. And I don't care who purchases, if we stay there or if it's sold or whatever, it's still going to have to come up to ADA qualifications there. So
Yeah, the
thank you
trick
so
is to
much.
make it look like it was always there. If you build it out of older materials, for instance, or in a style that it was built in originally and match that, it'll look like it was always there. And so you got to look at the whole thing though, and come up with a plan.
Thank you. Looking forward to seeing what our report is for City Hall and having your what you come up with as far as what would happen there. Thank you so much, Mr. Derry.
Thank you.
I don't have any other questions at this point.
And again, for Thursday, I'll have, Mr. Derry and Ms. Green both. I'll work with finance to see where, at this point, where it makes the most sense to recommend where we get those dollars from.
Sounds good. Adam, did you have questions?
Aside from obviously what we discussed with Ms. Green with Mr. Derry, the earmarking, that whole thing certainly applies. Could you just clarify for me, Mayor Slaughter, are we doing this with Trade and Transit 1, 2, and RVT to be above and beyond, or are we doing this because of the dissent decree? So since we are over there temporarily, and that is temporarily City Hall, this consent decree legally goes over there.
Right. So this is still within the consent decree. Yeah,
Okay.
that since now the public will be accessing codes or wherever, that we need to make sure that it is accessible. So yes.
Okay. No, I appreciate the clarification. That's all that I had related to this. So thank you.
And if I can follow up on that point, then Mayor Slaughter, it sounds as though, so we're looking at, probably between $8,000 and $10,000 for Mr. Derry's time to come up here, evaluate our structures, and make his way back to West Virginia. Is there a way to have him, and absent with only a handful of exceptions, my understanding is we should be, our existing facility, our current facilities, that is Trade and Transit 1, 2, and RVT, should all pass the inspection with pretty much flying colors. So it would seem perhaps wise for us to also have him evaluate City Hall as part of ongoing evaluation of City Hall and Trade and Transit 1 and 2, which will be our final resting place, so to speak. Is there a
I
way?
mean, he could do the exterior of City Hall at this point. He would not be able to go through the full interior of it, given
Not
the
even
air
if you're,
quality.
not even if you were wearing like a mask or something?
That's a question for Joe Girardi, because he's technically the one that's in charge of allowing access or not. But I don't believe so, but we can get clarification on that from Mr. Girardi.
For Thursday, that'd be great. Yeah, because I guess it just seems to me like that's really the building in question for a number of these items. And so it would be, to my way of thinking, especially if Mr. Derry can give us some idea of a cost estimate to bring that building into compliance, that would help us to clarify financially our path forward in terms of choosing a location. So I think that could really be key. If you could check on that with Mr. Girardi, that would be ideal. And then obviously, were we to select City Hall as the building that we were going to stick with, and we were going to do the renovations to the building, it would be a shame to have Mr. Derry come up at that point, pay him once again to make his trip to put together his reports and find out that there were unforeseen expenses in that building. Things that Mr. Derry found that we needed to bring into compliance that we hadn't anticipated as part of our costing procedure. So I think it would really be key to have him look at all 4 city-owned structures at the same time, rather than not having him do City Hall unless we elect to stay in City Hall. So if Mr. Girardi can figure out a way to make that a possibility, I think that would be wise. Mr. Derry would, pending, of course, some knowledge of what's in the structure, would you be comfortable with that, with evaluating all 4 structures?
Yes, I was going to make 2 quick points on that. I can be flexible as far as the buildings that you need me to look at. And yes, those can be within the scope. I can do exterior only on City Hall, or I can do interior, exterior. I can come back and revisit it and just do that building, and you won't have several days of expenses. It'll probably be a day trip. And so we can work it out, and I always try to keep the cost low so I get a good referral from you on the next folks. And so the other point I wanted to make was, I don't cost your stuff. You have better access to costing folks that you do business with. They're going to be more accurate as far as the pricing of construction. I can ballpark things, but oh man, is it going to be ballpark?
Got it. Yeah, no, I wasn't anticipating you telling us it's going to be, 2,597,000.
It's amazing what people expect sometimes. So I just wanted to be clear.
And I appreciate that clarity. Thank you. But I think part of the discussion that we're having right now regarding our current City Hall versus the buildings in which we're currently located because of some issues with mold is what it would cost to stay in City Hall versus what it would cost to relocate. And part of that discussion is what our obligations are to the handicapped community. So I think it's key to try and get that information sooner rather than later.
Some of the information I can provide you also would apply to due diligence on whether or not you want to keep the building, if there's huge issues that I put in a report. And so that may be helpful to you too, but I'm flexible on the scope of work, and you guys have my hourly rate, and we're basically doing the time and materials, but I'm going to try to be very conscious on costs on this and try to keep it reasonable for you.
Well, we would very much appreciate that, Mr. Derry. Thank you. Adam and Bonnie.
Hey, Liz,
yes.
if you don't mind, this is John Sander. I just wanted to add a thing or two to the existing City Hall. So we do have in hand a 20-page report done by Joe Girardi. It was also reviewed by a ADA consultant with the same certifications as Mr. Green. We do have that in hand. and I'm not sure if Mr. Green knows this, I'm kind of letting everyone know. I apologize, my voice is a little hoarse. In addition to that, Mr. Green, we also have 2 existing contracts for a exterior ADA ramp to the tune of about $170,000 is currently still on track. And interior on City Hall, that work, we have a contract for a new elevator system for approximately $600,000 that's currently under contract. That's on hold right now. So I just wanted to let everyone know that we do have quite a bit of this already. In addition to those items, we have extensive cost estimate for all the other items inside City Hall that need to be brought up for compliance. So I just wanted to let everyone know that.
Well, I think what I would suggest, I mean, all of that information, including any prior evaluations that we have on the other 3 structures that we're talking about, should clearly be made available to Mr. Derry before he gets to Williamsport. I think any work that we have done, any evaluations that we've had performed, especially evaluations that we've paid to have performed, should be provided to Mr. Derry so that he can incorporate them into the assessment. And hopefully they save him time. And if they don't, at least he can let us understand why he doesn't consider that evaluation to be valid. You know what I mean?
Yep. I just kind of wanted to let everyone know that, Liz. I wasn't trying to jump it, but I wanted to let everyone know that. That's all.
Right. No, I think that's valuable. But I guess to your point, what we sometimes forget is that if we're having someone new look at a subject, we should give them the prior information that we have on the subject. Otherwise, we're wasting their time and we're wasting our time.
Sure.
Anyway,
on the projects that are on the board, I do offer plan review, and the rate's a little less for plan review because it's all in the office. So it's something to consider as we're talking through things down the road.
great. Well, yeah, that probably would be a wise idea as well, Mr. Derry. So now that we've got, if you could, what is the plan review amount, Mr. Derry, just so that we have that in hand as well?
That's $150 an hour.
Okay, so $150 an hour versus the $200 rate for the.
Yeah. The
site
good thing
visit.
about the plan review is once or twice or 3 times with your architects and they've been around the block and you really don't need it much anymore after that, or they hire somebody to do it.
Got it. Great.
I'm looking forward to sitting down with John Sander on a few of these things.
That's
He's
me,
been
by the way.
helpful to me.
That's me, by
Thanks.
the way, Mark. Just let you know.
You too, man. Thank you for the help and sending
No, no
me
problem.
those PDFs.
No problem, sir.
All right. Excellent. Well, I'm glad you guys have made your acquaintance already then. All right, then, Adam, Bonnie, anything further to add? Anybody else, anything to add?
Nothing from me.
Nothing.
Okay, then Derek, so I guess we're looking for 2 pieces of information now at City Council on Thursday, one of which is what specific pot of money the administration is going to be pulling these expenses from. And it sounds to me like we should probably have about $20,000 just in case that we feel comfortable that we could take out of a given line. And then the second piece of information is whether or not Mr. Derry will be able to access the interior of City Hall as part of his tour. Mr. Derry, do you have a time when you're expecting to come up here to the city?
No, I haven't. To be honest with you, I haven't looked at the calendar, but it's within a couple of weeks I could get up there.
Oh, awesome. Okay, so it's not like beginning of next year or anything. It's pretty
No. I just need a few weeks time to work it into the schedule.
Yeah,
Sounds
Mr. Dare and I talked about that briefly, Councilwoman, just because we do have timelines related to the consent decree. So it is, we do have to hit certain deadlines within the consent decree related to when he's got to get the report to Ms. Green and back to Sil and all of us to review. So yeah, we'll be within that. Yeah, it's not like a couple months down the road.
Sounds great. Okay, fantastic. All right, then hearing no further questions or comments, I would take a motion, please.
I
I'll
make
make
a
a-
motion that we pass this on to the full body of council with the caveat that we find the line item that the money is going to be coming out of.
I'll second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay,
And I
fantastic.
think we have a dog that's voting aye too.
Okay. Hey, for once, it's not on my end. Nobody's screaming. And there are no animals. All I've got is a ringing phone over here today. All right. Mayor, we're going to go back up to item number 1, that a resolution for an appointment of the Director of Public Safety. Mayor Slaughter?
Yep. So what you have before you again is a resolution to appoint Chief Justin Snyder as our Public Safety Director. As you know, this role was previously served by Chief Hagan. And then upon his retirement, it has been open. And now I'm bringing before council the appointment pending your approval to appoint Chief Justin Snyder as our new Director of Public Safety.
Great. Thanks, Bonnie. Adam, questions?
Yeah, a couple questions. Mayor, walk me through your thought process in choosing Chief Snyder. More so what you're seeing, I guess, like staffing administratively. This is a position that I don't think has been filled for a while, between the previous administration at least. Let me take that back. This is a position that hasn't been filled by a sole individual. I think we've had either it not filled, the mayor's quoted done it before, and then we've had somebody doing multiple roles, Chief Hagan and now proposed Chief Snyder. Walk me through the thought process of what you're seeing and why the rationale of continuing the trend of having somebody do multiple positions, if you would, please.
Yeah, sure. Well, one, I think obviously with it being public safety, I think we need someone within the public safety realm to fulfill that position.
Mm-hmm.
And if we keep it on the inside, so to speak, it's budget neutral, as we were discussing earlier. So just Chief Snyder would not be taking an additional salary for this. It's not, a ton of extra work. He, in my opinion, could handle this role. It's very similar with what we do with Chief Killian on the emergency management side of things. And now Chief Snyder being Director of Public Safety. So I think, given his experience, from the federal level all the way down, which he can speak to obviously more directly than I can, I thought it made sense. Chief Hagan did a great job last year. We had different events in the city, presidential visits, where we had, Chief Hagan fulfilled that Director of Public Safety role, which he was in the planning anyway, related to obviously our public safety services. So I think Chief Snyder would do, again, fulfill this role seamlessly as well, given his extensive public safety background and the fact that, if we were to bring an outside person in, or any other person really, I doubt they would do it without a salary. Maybe they would, but not likely.
Yeah, not likely. That would be sweet, but probably not. No, I appreciate the thought process. Since we talked about this at capital budget, I've gone back and forth in my head. I mean, because it's I don't want to say catch-22, but there's a couple of different ways to certainly slice it. And I remember voting for Chief Hagan last year and having mixed emotions at that time as well, just with the thought of, having a bureau head specifically within public safety, not 100% focused on that bureau. I voted for it at the time, knowing that we had the neo-Nazis were coming, and I didn't want to necessarily show any cracks in the armor, so to speak. But between thinking about our conversation and capital budget, and something that Councilman Allison said at that time has really stuck with me, and I don't want to put words in his mouth, but he made the comment about people having maybe too much power in the event that they are, serving multiple positions. My gut tells me I don't know that this is a wise choice, and that's no reflection of Chief Snyder. He's been in the role for a couple of months. He's certainly learning the chief role. He's certainly doing a good job, and I think he's got some really good stuff going. Strategic planning wise, that I don't know that we have seen for a while. I think Chief Hagan kind of started to kick some of those initiatives, but Chief Snyder certainly grabbing them by the horns and really progressing and advancing them. And I'm excited to see that. My concern would be taking his complete focus off of those and extending the learning curve that he's in with the police department, as well as now, getting his hands in fire, emergency management, what have you. I think that if this is a role that we need, I think we should try to look at finding the money to fund it and hire somebody to solely focus on it. If we don't need it, maybe we should revisit what the structure of public safety specifically looks like. That's just kind of where my head's at. And again, Mayor Slaughter, I appreciate the thought process that you went through with that. It certainly makes sense. I'm just not sure that it at least makes sense right now, at least from my perspective. The other thing that I would ask would be, we harp on this a lot. I know that we've been looking for public works. We have another department that kind of falls within public safety that hasn't been filled for a while. The former director of administration, we kind of played around with that last year when we updated the ordinance to director of finance administration, which is I think a very, very important role that we haven't had filled for a very long time. Are you looking at that department as well? Do you have any thoughts or timelines on when we might look to start filling that department? Public Works, we haven't had RVT formally appointed either. I know Adam Winder's been over there since before we updated the ordinance, but since it was updated, he hasn't been brought forward either. And while he's been doing the job, I think there's a lot of great, discussion that can happen on all of these departments, especially RVT. That would be good. Do you have any, time frames, thoughts on any of these other departments, specifically finance administration?
Sure, I would. Well, as we've discussed before, I don't think that director of administration and director of finance can be the same individual. I don't know what council's thought process is on a salary for the director of finance or director of administration. I don't think at this point we need a director of administration. I would agree that we would need a director of finance at some point. The time frame on that would probably be contingent on everything else that's going on. Obviously, I'm not sure we want to bring a director of finance in the middle of, what's happening right now. Maybe we do. If we do, we'll have to be completely above board on what is transpiring right now. So that's a little difficult, but I'm not sure who would take that. That's kind of why I've been hesitant on the director of finance position a little bit, given all of that. But I do agree that we do need a director of finance, hopefully sooner rather than later, and hopefully things are wrapped up sooner rather than later, but that's out of my control. As far as public works, we have offered that to 5 or 6 individuals at this point. Unfortunately, they either stayed with their current position or decided to take another offer elsewhere. So we're on, I believe, the 7th round of interviews now for public works. Internally, we've had discussions. I've even had discussions with the union of having an agreement similar to police and fire, where if they step out of the union to take an administrative role, they can go back into the union to their current position. I can't speak for the union, obviously, and Keith Graves isn't on this call, but there's been a variety of conversations that we've had around that, good conversations. But at this point, there's no MOU or any agreement that they could step back into the union. So all of our internal folks at Public Works, at this point, it's not looking that they would want to, we of course like to keep it in-house, but they do not want to step out of their union role without that security blanket that if administration changes, for example, they could get their position back. So we're working through that. Public Works has been a process. And as far as RVT, I think that's a similar conversation as finance. Once we have sort of everything untangled, I am looking forward to the day that I can bring all of that to council. We can get all of that squared away. Hopefully that is very soon here. And then just jump back to Chief Snyder real quick. I would respectfully disagree, although I appreciate your comments. I think he is more than competent in the role that he could fulfill both of those. But I'm happy to have that conversation, with council and with wider council. But I don't think that would be an extra burden on him. He works with Chief Killian and Joe Girardi currently, and obviously all our public safety folks work together. However, if we do want to amend the administrative code of councils, if that's a direction that you all would like to go, I'm happy to have those conversations and look at the administrative code and where it might make sense. And even salary wise, like you said. So if we want to look at a salary for public safety, if we want to look at a salary, what the salary would be for director of finance, director of administration, that would obviously help on my end if we want to hire out for those positions.
Gotcha. Related to the public works thing, I'm making the assumption that the candidates that we've offered to are external candidates, outside of the political administrative dynamic that exists and that really is going to exist regardless of who's where. What kind of feedback have you gotten that has made candidates turn away? Is there anything else that I guess maybe we could aid in addressing?
I think for maybe one or two of them, the residency thing was a little hesitancy. I don't think that was the full reason, but they were at least a little hesitant on it. A few of them, their current positions, I believe, offered them a sweeter deal. So maybe some leverage. I don't want to, they didn't say that, but maybe use the city as leverage a little bit. And then the one, I believe, just had a couple of different offers and went with the others. So, but I think a few of the external, was related to, the residency requirement.
Gotcha.
Which that kind of is what it is, but we've been fortunate in every other role except for public works for whatever reason. We just, I'm sure we will hopefully soon. And if we're working with an administrative foreman right now. So in public works, this was created prior to us, you being on council, me being mayor. There's an administrative foreman position, which is still part of the union. So, we're trying to work with the union right now to say, hey, if like I said, if we step out, could they, and one of the options could potentially be that they start back as low man or woman on the totem pole. But then again, who wants to do that? Who wants to jump in administration? And then if you go back, start all the way at the bottom. So trying to work with the union to get, we want to get this position filled, obviously. Yeah. But trying to see if an internal candidate steps out, giving them so that they're, giving them a little bit of security.
Yeah.
And what that might look like. Now, again, I haven't had any formal, so I don't want to speak out of turn. I have not had formal conversation with the union, so I don't want the union to get upset at me. But I've just kind of threw it out there and say, hey, can we work together on this? It has been a while. Are there any thing you could take to the union? So at this point, we're in obvious right now. We're actually in negotiations with ASME.
Gotcha.
So it's one of those things that we kind of kicked around to see if there's a way we could work this out.
Gotcha. I appreciate all that feedback. I've burned up a lot of time here. Just real quick, if there's anything that I can do specifically, or I would say as council that we can do to aid in, figuring out finance administration, public works, all of them, certainly let us know, here to be whatever help we can be to get them filled. I think it's very important that they are, and I think you agree as well. And certainly I think we agree to disagree related to public safety. That's perfectly fine. Appreciate the thought process and collaboration nonetheless. And my disagreement, just to clarify, it's no, knock on Chief Snyder's ability to do it. I personally just disagree with the philosophy. That's just my personal opinion. I think Chief Snyder's doing a solid job, and I'm excited to see what's going to come out of the police department related to his current efforts as well. So like I said, I've sucked up a lot of time. I'll yield the floor here to Bonnie and Liz.
Well, I'll just say one more thing. for the Director of Administration and Director of Finance, I think we do need to visit that as a council administration and see if we want to amend the administrative code. I think that would be a lot for one person to fulfill both of those positions. And we need to have a conversation, council and administration, around what council might consider a reasonable salary.
Certainly.
Yeah, if I can jump in, Mayor Slaughter, I will say that while I'm happy to vote for Chief Snyder today, I would agree with Adam that it seems as though a director of public safety becomes somewhat toothless when the director of public safety is pulled from heading one of the departments of public safety that director is supposed to oversee. While I don't know if we need a director or if we don't, I would say if we were to have a director, it would strike me perhaps as more appropriate if that person were outside did not work within one of the public safety departments, just because, it seems, but I understand your concerns about salary, the question of what does that person do as a full-time position, et cetera, et cetera. I do think that it's a discussion we need to revisit at some point, not within a committee meeting where you kind of get bogged down. And along the same lines, I personally believe, while I would be fine with the finance department being rolled into the general administrative department build out, I think that we desperately need a director of administration within the city. And I would be more than willing to discuss looking at salary and or possibilities for something like that. I guess I understand that sometimes directors of administration change with administrations, but what I have seen on my time on council is little continuity between administrations within the city. And I think that the more people we can put in place who can sort of continue, can have longer term vision on items that affect the city, rather than the whole 4-year electoral cycle that all of us fall within, I think the better. And I think that we would be doing the city a huge favor to fill that director of administration position with a competent individual who is not employed in other departments within the city, and consequently has operates and can advise the employees underneath of them, can work with the mayor on economic development. To me, that is really a key position that would make a huge difference in our ability to operate in a long-term, long-sighted, I guess, fashion as a community. That's my 2 cents. And we're kind of getting bogged down. I apologize. As the head of the meeting, I think I need to try and encourage us to start moving more quickly, or Bonnie will never make it to her public works meeting. But Ms. Katz, did you have anything to add to that?
I'm just going to say I agree with both Adam and you. I do think that one person who is in charge of the chief of police and public safety, they should not hold the 2 positions. I think I am going to throw this out. I am not, and I meant to do this over the weekend to go through 3rd class city code. Is it absolutely necessary to have a public safety director? If we don't need a public safety director, we're looking at the chief of police. We're looking at Chief Killian from the fire department. We're looking at Joe Girardi from codes, who already do take on the jobs of what has to be done when there is an emergency. And so I'm wondering if the public safety director is just a title, and is there any other use for on what comes under the title of public safety director? What is the job of public safety director? Sometimes it is just a title, because I think the chief of police is still doing a lot of what has to be done for public safety. So, and that's my opinion.
Yeah, I think that needs to be part of the larger conversation, Bonnie. What could the roles, perhaps we've never really fleshed out what the role of a public safety director could be within the city. And maybe that's something we need to consider. Is there a job there that is not currently being done? Or is there no job there that really merits being done, and consequently, right? But point well taken.
It was just it's an administrative code last year that we discussed, which it sounds to me after this conversation that we want to revisit it a little bit. We had a Department of Public Safety and said it shall be headed by director. So just trying to adhere to the administrative code.
Right.
And if we do want to go the route with the director of administration, I would respectfully ask that we have a conversation of looking to, again, amend it to director of administration and director of finance, and not having that individual hold dual roles, as it sounds like you all don't really want to have the same person hold multiple roles within the city as it is. So I think this conversation for us to have here in the near future at some point.
I would agree. Okay, so we'll agree to talk about it later. Bonnie and Adam, if I hear nothing further, I take a motion on the Director of Public Safety here.
I would pass this on with no recommendation right now.
Okay.
I'll
Adam,
second that. That's fine.
okay, then all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay, so we can look forward to discussing this at length. I'll see y'all there. Okay. Oh, shoot. Oh, my apologies, guys. I think I just undid something I didn't intend to undo. Adam, can you remind me of what the next item on our agenda is? Because I just totally closed down something I meant to leave open.
Accepting proposal for auditing services.
Yep.
All right,
Woodring.
thank you. Ms. Woodring, you've been on the call for a long time waiting on us. What can you tell us?
Good afternoon, everybody. Attached is a resolution with a proposal from Zelenkowski, hopefully that's correct, Axelrod LLC to start the audit for the city of Williamsport for years 2019, 2020, and 21. On June 23rd, I issued a RFP to four different firms. The only bid I received was from Zelenkowski Axelrod LLC. The costs are listed for each year, and they are year 19, $86,600, year 2020, $88,950, and year 2021, $91,425. The scope of the work also is included with your packet. This was reviewed by solicitor Norm Rubin.
I would like to ask a question of Peg.
Bonnie. Okay, go for it,
Peg,
Bonnie. Sorry.
why is the, I find it interesting that the cost of going back to 2019 is less expensive than what we're doing for 2021, number one. Number two, did we have an audit started by Baker Tilly in 2019? Those are my two questions.
I believe they started it, but the mayor was looking into finding out whether we could get any of that returned.
Yeah, at this point, it's not looking as though we can. It's still kind of fluid. So I've been working with Austin on that to see if it is possible. Again, given what's going on in some of the situations we are in, it's been fluid. So I don't have a definitive answer on that right now, but we are working through that.
Is there any of the information from 2019 that is transferable to the newer company? Or are they holding back all the information, and does the new company have to start from scratch?
At this point, it's looking like the new company will have to start from scratch. We are anticipating in the very near future that RVT audit 2019, so that they won't be starting from complete scratch. They'll have that, which I think might answer some of the questions on the city side. So it won't be absolute from scratch, but right as of right now, it'll be pretty much starting from scratch. However, as we move forward here, there could be some items that are recoverable, possibly.
There was some of the report in the Baker Tilly report, it was kind of disturbing a little bit, as far as what they weren't getting and what they weren't permitted to get. So I found that kind of interesting when you were reading through this. Again, if they're starting from the very beginning in 2019, I still don't understand how come it's lesser money than what it is for 2021.
I'll leave that up to Peg to answer. I'm sorry, I'm not sure what you were meaning with the Baker Tilly report.
It was interesting, because Peg gave us the report from Baker Tilly, and
For
trying to
which
go
year did
through
she?
all of this, it was really kind of interesting.
Which year are you looking at, or what report are you referencing?
Let me see, does it give a year?
It's a letter dated from 2019, from November 2019. It looks like it's like terms and conditions. From what
okay.
I saw, I was a little confused, and that was going to be one of my questions to Peg. I was confused as to why it was even included in this, but I'm assuming that's what Bonnie's talking about.
Yes.
Okay, I'll defer to Peg on that. Then I'm not.
Let me see.
But I can give you an
I'm
update.
here.
If I hear anything related to anything we're able to recoup, I will keep you posted on that. I am working on that side.
Appreciate it, Derek. And between you and Peg, if there's anything, between now and Thursday, if there's anything, I guess, contractually we should look at to include in this to maybe better position ourselves, not really with this firm, but if this happens in the future again, if there's any, I guess, legal, mumble jumble that we need to put in here or we should look at it.
Yeah, I'll have Peg. I can't direct Peg, obviously, but I would ask Peg to maybe consult with Austin or Norm, Peg on that to make sure, we are covered on that event.
Yeah.
I don't think we want to get stuck with something like this happening again, an auditor leaving in half of the process.
Mm-hmm.
I would agree.
I don't have any other questions, Liz.
Thanks, Bonnie. I would assume that one of the things that Zelenowski could do would be to reach out to Baker Tilly themselves directly and see if they could get information gathered by Baker Tilly. And it may be that they have already, given that their numbers for 2019 and 2020 are under their numbers for 2021. You know what I'm saying? Maybe they arrived at some understanding that they could obtain information from a previous auditor. I'm not certain. But I think that would be an avenue that we haven't yet explored. Yeah, with the exception of that, and Adam, yeah, I would agree with you on the packet thing. Adam, did you have points that you wanted to make as well?
No, I just that I wasn't sure why that was included. And then, like I had mentioned, Peg, maybe it makes sense to reach out to Austin or Norm, just to see if there's any legal additions we need to add to this, just to cover ourselves in the future, so we can go back and go after money if an audit's not completed properly. We should definitely look at that.
And just so it's on record, RKL is the one that's completing our other audit. So that's who this company would reach out and connect with on that.
You mean RVT's audit?
Correct, yes.
Right. So they're going to work with RKL clearly, but they could also reach out to Baker Tilly to see if they can get any information related to 2020.
Yeah, I would imagine that they would want to do that. So
okay. Do we have, Peg, an actual contract with Zelenowski?
No, we just have the proposal. I have to let them know after this proposal is passed, and I will get more information the following day when I contact them.
Can you reach out, Peg? Because generally speaking, we don't pass a proposal, we pass a contract.
Okay, I can call them on that.
And the other thing that we would need before Thursday would be a resolution to go with the item. Unless I missed sorry, let me apologize though for that. I did not see that in our materials. Do we have it and I missed it? Did anybody else receive
a resolution? Yeah.
We have the resolution for the proposal.
Yeah,
Okay,
but I don't, but
that's-
to Liz's point, I don't think there's a contract
There's not a
included in it.
contract.
The proposal is one thing, a contract is a different piece.
Okay, well, I am somehow missing the resolution. If someone could forward that to me, I would appreciate it. I don't know what happened to that. But yeah, but I think we would need, so what we would do, Peg, is council would authorize a resolution accepting a contract with Zelenovsky Axelrod. And so the issue with the contract, we can't accept a proposal because we need to understand the specifics of, termination, whether or not we own the data, if anyone prematurely terminates the agreement, things like that.
Okay,
We need to have all of that in hand before we can decide on what we're actually agreeing to. So I guess I would say that we should, that I would recommend that the administration pull this item from the agenda for this Thursday until we have both the contract and a resolution in hand and we can review them for the next agenda.
okay.
Or that you, I guess, Derek, frankly, I'm not certain whether you'd need to pull the item from the agenda. I think you would. Even though it's technically Peg presenting it. But I would defer to somebody with a little bit more knowledge of procedure than me.
I think
My
Peg
apologies.
can, but I mean, we can
Yeah.
verify with the solicitor.
Anyway, I mean, we can table it at the full body of council on Thursday, but I would recommend that Peg, that you pull it or that Derek pulls it from the agenda instead. All we need is the contract with them and then and then you guys have the resolution fronting it. Any other points on this item right now?
Not for me.
Okay. All right. Then with that said, I'll take a motion. I would assume this might be a negative recommendation at this point or no recommendation to forward this to the
Yeah.
full body of council.
I'll make a motion we forward to the full body of council with no recommendation.
I'll second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Thanks, guys.
Mayor is back now. Mayor, you would have to, Liz, do you want to explain to the mayor what needs to be done
Well,
with this?
Derek, I think to Adam's point, I think probably that Peg can pull this item. But either you or Peg would need to pull this item from the agenda until we have a contract with Zelenovsky that we on the finance committee would have time to review. So presumably at some point for the next finance meeting. Because obviously we can't pass a document that's basically just a quote to the full body, the council can't use that without a contract outlining the specifics so that we don't wind up losing ownership of the data collected or something like that.
Okay, yeah, so if Peg can't pull it since it's her item, if it technically has to come from me, then I'll just talk to Randy and get that done until Peg can get a, well, I can't tell Peg what to do, obviously, but I suggest Peg gets a.
Until we have a contract in hand.
Right, exactly, yeah.
Okay.
Okay,
Okay, we all cool then?
Yes, ma'am.
All right, fantastic. Moving on to item number 5, excuse me. My goodness, we're making no progress. All right, a resolution to approve a Cdbg CY multi-purpose public service project. Mr. Mehmet.
Good afternoon, everybody.
Hello.
This is a resolution to approve a project for CDBG CV funding. These funds are from the COVID-19 CARES Act funds to the city through the U.S. Housing and Urban Development. We bring to you the sofa sign project for $60,000. There will be 5 signs for $12,000 each. The sofa signs are solar-powered electronic displays that deliver and gather real-time information to and from the community. Some of the features include emergency updates, public transit information, local events calendars, and advertisements for local businesses. The pandemic has presented many challenges to the community. Some of these challenges include transferring accurate public health information, delivering emergency updates, communicating public resource availability, and keeping businesses open. These challenges have been even more prevalent among the low to moderate income population. For this reason, signs will be installed in LMI areas to increase equitable access to information in the city. By approving the SOFA sign project, the city of Williamsport will be able to transfer important information to its residents that will help mitigate COVID-19 and hopefully prevent future pandemics. This contract has been forwarded to the solicitor for review. There are a couple of loose ends that still need to be tied up before Thursday's meeting. With that, I will answer any questions if I can.
Thanks, Skip. Bonnie, Adam, questions?
I don't know where to begin with this. Skip, first of all, it says 5 locations. Has locations been designated, first of all?
Not at this time, no. That's to be determined if we go forward with the sign project.
Who determines that? The city or?
So the city does.
Okay. On number 2, going through and looking at this, we are going to have matching funds of $60,000, and we will not own this equipment, from what I understand, right?
No, we will own the equipment.
We will?
Yes.
Okay, that wasn't clarified to me. Okay, information wise, who's going to feed all the information into the kiosks?
The majority of it will come from the city. Some of it will come from the representative of SOFA.
That's where I have a problem. We have enough problems trying to get information on a website, not alone trying to get information into kiosks. You mentioned transportation. RVT spends a lot of money on their programs that trying to get information out to the public. So therefore, this would be you're double dipping here with both that kind of information. Number 1. Number 2, a program like this was instituted several years ago by another company that was business to business. And what it was businesses would, the company would go after the advertising on and I'm going to use this loosely, television screens. And these televisions were placed within businesses. One of them is still up at the airport. Another one is in Haas's at this point still. I don't know of any other businesses that still have it. But it is a process as far as keeping the information on there. The company itself sold the advertising. And from what I understand, after all expenses, which would take approximately a year, then we would get a percentage of the profits of this. I think something similar was done with these TVs that were placed throughout the city in different businesses. Truthfully, Skip, it didn't work. It really didn't work. It was interesting, especially the one at Haas's. It was in the front of the restaurant, and now it's where the entrance to the restrooms are. The information has to be fluid. And when I say fluid, it's human input. And that has always been my bugaboo with anything that comes to us as far as developing information. And we are not very good at doing this. We really aren't. So I find this very, it'd be a challenge all the way around. And we're using this from the CARES funding. And to me, $60,000 is a lot of money when you look at the outcome of this. I don't know whether this would be really beneficial in the neighborhoods. I really don't, Skip. And that's only my personal opinion, only because of what I experienced several years ago with a different program that went through other businesses.
Thanks, Bonnie. Adam?
Skip, can you clarify the ownership thing again? Because
Yeah, I was going to ask that.
on page 3, which, well, I guess it would be page 2 of the resolution under ownership, it says that changing environments remains the ultimate owner of the equipment. Now they maintain it, which is not a bad thing, but they maintain the ownership. Is there somewhere else in here that that I'm missing?
I'm looking right now, Adam. If you give me-
Okay. The other thing too, I just wanted to clarify. So is the match coming from rescue plan funding, or not rescue plan funding? CARES Act funding.
COVID funding, yes, it is coming from there, yes.
Okay, so the match is coming from CARES Act funding,
Yes, sir.
not out of the general fund. Okay,
No,
gotcha.
sir.
Gotcha.
And Adam, to be more specific, it's coming from the specific line item that HUD allocates to communities that are in CDBG programs. So it is coming from CARES Act through HUD, the CDBG COVID relief funds.
Perfect. I appreciate the clarification. I thought that was the case, but I wanted to ask just to make sure.
And I misspoke, Adam. You're right. The environmental, what do they call themselves?
Yeah.
Yeah,
That's what I thought, that we didn't own it.
Yeah.
yeah.
We don't own the signs now.
Gotcha.
I think that's okay, because if we don't own the signs, Adam, then we don't have to maintain them.
Yeah.
And they
Which is an upside.
maintain them. And we feed them the information and they post it.
Okay.
Right.
Also, to add a little bit more of a uniqueness to these signs, these are very interactive signs. So say that the city needs to do a community survey and that kind of stuff, people can actually go up to these signs, press the screen on their responses and answers, and then press submit as well.
Got it. I think, Bonnie and Adam, it's interesting to me because I think all of us have some deep reservations about this item, and I think that we all have them for totally different reasons. So, Skip and Chelsea, can you guys help me understand this whole data collection element? What data is being collected, why the city would want to allow a third party to collect data on our citizens, all of that?
Well, actually, the data is more the number of people that pass by the kiosk. We can do head counts as to let's say we put one in front of one of the parks. It can actually determine how many people are actually entering and leaving the park. If there was a way to direct people into the area that surrounded just this kiosk of this sign. That's probably the biggest data point that the sign is able to gather in and of itself, other than the surveys that we might post and they then answer. That data is collected but that's given by the individuals for us to collect that data. It was a project that was presented to us. We thought it had potential to help us reach out to the LMI neighborhoods. It was unique in and of itself. That the maintenance issues were covered, and at the end of the day, the county is starting to look at this also, and the chamber. This was an opportunity for us to be the first in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, and maybe even be leading the charge into some kind of new technologies. So I thought it was a good enough project to bring to council for your direction. I think it's an investment that might have some merit, some us to invest in it, and we can either expand it, or 2 years from now we can walk away from the contract, and unfortunately we would lose the 60 grand, but we at least gave it a shot.
In addition, some of the loose ends that Skip was talking about, and it will be changing, you'll see on page 2 of the contract where it discusses the maintenance will be invoiced in full beginning in the second year. We had just caught this literally earlier today, where that is not correct. We actually will not be invoiced for any of the maintenance within this 2 years. So they are correcting that within the contract.
So there's no maintenance for the first 2 years, but the next 3 or the next
So-
5.
Yeah, so then after year 2, what will need to happen is a new contract agreement between the city of Williamsport and this changing environment.
Got it. And just help me to understand, the fact that we wouldn't be invoiced for maintenance in year 2 does not mean that they won't perform maintenance in year 2, correct?
So they will be performing maintenance in year 1 and year 2.
Okay.
This is part of why this was such a unique opportunity, because we're not being charged any of the maintenance fee.
Yeah, although we could reasonably look at the $12,000, given that we're not actually purchasing equipment or anything with that as being a maintenance fee. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I mean, the $12,000 is not for, we're not getting hardware, we're not getting data. Through this agreement, the company retains rights to pretty much everything. What the city gets is the ability to broadcast certain information over this signage, but the company and the potential to receive revenue through the company selling advertising on the signage as well, correct?
Correct.
Yeah, with
Okay.
a 20% that the city of Williamsport could receive after the investment.
Right.
And actually, these signs are a little bit over 16,000. We were able to negotiate it down to 12,000. One of the reasons being that we would be the model, so to speak, for them going out to other municipalities within the state of Pennsylvania and elsewhere. And we also were able to defer the first 2 years of those maintenance costs. Those were issues that we in this office were able to negotiate to bring to council at a lower cost and with no maintenance costs in the first 2 years.
Got it. And when we talk about then data collection, you're telling me that the sensor has no camera, correct?
No camera that I'm aware of, Councilwoman Maley.
All right. Could
I
we
do have
confirm?
another question, Liz.
Sure.
Skip, there's nothing in here about who okays the advertisers.
Yeah.
I wouldn't like to see that we have final approval who advertises with this company. We ran into a situation somewhere in the city that we did not have control over. And that's one of the things that I think we have to be careful with as far as who we allow to advertise on this. Second of
Yep.
all, and I would like to see, Mayor, who would we do, or Skip, who would we be in charge of the input of the information? Who would be constantly feeding it?
Well, and I think more to the point, Bonnie, what qualifies as information that the city lists on this? Do we list city events, and do we list city events that are not necessarily city sponsored? Do you know what I'm saying? Like, do we list events that private businesses are having? What does that count as? There's a lot of gray area in there. That's of some concern to me, just in terms of protecting ourselves from a lawsuit or an implication that we're supporting certain local businesses or something. Sorry, Bonnie, to interrupt, but
No, that's where I was coming from, Liz. We have to be so careful. We know in the past some of the things that we've gotten into problems with, and let's learn from our past. We do have to be careful of what is done. We've had that even with our website, who was advertising what kind of events were put on the website. And you're right. One business could get really angry if another business is promoting one of their events and they weren't put on if they had an event. So who's going to be in charge of that? I mean, this is not just something that you just put out there and say, okay, let it go. There's too many complications with this that can come back to bite us.
Yeah, I think this is an intriguing idea for sure. It seems to me, I mean, I don't know what the other Liz, Bonnie, you guys think. It seems like we need to flush this out a little bit more. This might be something that we want to look at tabling again. just to give us a little bit more time to flush out some of the more like finer details that we're asking about. I think this is an intriguing idea for sure, but I think we need to flush it out a little bit more.
I really like what
I-
you said, Skip, is putting it in the parks and things like
Mhm.
that.
Yeah.
To see where the traffic flows in the city.
Yeah.
I mean, I think things like that are incredible. There are just nuances that kind of scare me.
Yeah,
Really
like,
tell
I
you the
mean, there's
truth.
another thing in here, like, we're not entitled to any net revenue until they recoup all their initial costs and maintenance costs. I mean, I don't know what that break even point is for them, but I mean, it'd be good to understand that too. Yeah, just little things like that.
Well, it might be, to be honest, Adam, I think it might be wise for this item to remain on the agenda until Thursday, because I would be interested to hear what the other 4 members of council think about it. I think that might give Skip and Chelsea the sort of guidance they would need to know whether or not we should pursue this further, or whether.
Yeah,
you know,
that's
it's-
certainly fine. I mean, I'm just thinking if anything, we table it on Thursday.
Yeah.
Well, it also gives Skip and Chelsea time to
Agreed.
dig deeper a little bit with some of the things that we've presented to you today.
Yep.
Some
Yeah,
of our own questions.
Some of the things that I'd like to have fleshed out, I'd like to know precisely what the sensor technology is on the sign and whether or not it includes any sort of camera technology, anything like that. You know what I mean? Facial recognition, yada, yada, yada. Could it possibly get demographics? And then I think the other thing I heard was a question of that 20% from advertising. Do we have final approval of the ads that are running? Just to make certain that there's nothing inappropriate on there. And B, at what point
That we do have approval of.
we do have approval of the advertising.
Yes,
Okay.
yes. And if something would inadvertently be put up within 4 hours, it'll be taken down.
Got it. Okay. Then I think the other question that I heard was, what is the cost to them of running and maintaining the sign? Which is to say, at what point might we see some income from it? Or what are other communities receiving in terms of income from it?
Okay. We'll try to get that information for Thursday night.
All right, sounds good. And then I think, I think we'll get a better sense of how other members of council feel too. I don't know that any of us are really firm no's. We're fascinated by the concept, but we're trying to understand how it's going to play out and how the city's going to make good use of it when we have failed. Bonnie's right, in the past with similar systems. Okay. So any thoughts that you and Chelsea might be able to flesh out between now and then on that would also be welcome. Who's going to oversee the content and make sure that on the city side it's positive content and that we're actively posting and utilizing those signs to our advantage for the investment that we're making in them. Even if it is CARES Act money. Okay. All right. Any other comments on that?
Nope.
All right. Then I would take a motion.
Make a motion before the full body council with no recommendation.
Second.
It's going to look like we did nothing today at this meeting.
Hey, we're only halfway through and we're through our time.
I
so
know.
we did a lot.
All in favor.
Aye.
Aye.
Okay. Item number 6, a resolution awarding the
Thank you.
2021 contract. Pardon?
No, I said
Okay.
thank you.
Skip,
Thank you,
Chelsea,
Skip.
thank you both.
Thanks, Skip and Chelsea.
Thanks,
We
Chelsea.
appreciate it. So bye. Okay, contracts for street line painting and bituminous seal coating. Mr. Winder, can you make it quick?
I will definitely try. As many of you are aware, we joined the West Branch Council of Governments Cooperative Purchasing. These 2 items are part of that. The West Branch Council of Governments puts the items out for bid under the direction and supervision of PennDOT. This resolution would authorize the closure of our awarding of the bid. One being to Mid-Atlantic Marking Incorporated in the amount of $13,437.03. They seem to be the ones that have gotten the line painting through this process for the last couple of years. And the seal coating would be in the amount of $26,998.27. The name has changed with this company, but it has been the company for the last 10 years that has done the seal coating through this process. It is the same areas we touch upon every year. And as I said, it is an annual resolution that comes forward. So I'll answer questions you may have.
Okay, Bonnie, Adam?
I have no questions.
All right.
Me neither.
Okay, then if there are no questions, poor Mr. Winder's been sitting on this call for forever waiting for us to cover this item. I will, Mr. Winder, to my recollection, this is not out of line with prior year costs, correct?
No, it's not. I think it went up about 3% from last year.
That was what I was figuring.
Yeah.
Mr. Winder, would it ever be possible for you to get a quote for us on expanding this to include a network of bike lanes in the city, or an approximate idea of what that would cost?
Yes, ma'am.
That's one of the things that I would like to see us do, and I think it would be inexpensive with the ARPA funding. So having some idea of the additional cost annually would be important. Thank you.
Thank you.
That said, can I get a motion, please, guys?
I make a motion, we pass this on to the full body council with a positive recommendation.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. All right, thank you, Mr. Winder. Item number
Thank
7.
you.
Okay. A resolution approving change order number 1 for the Bowman Field Scoreboard project. John Sander, you still out there somewhere?
I'm still here.
All right.
Yes,
Tell us.
good afternoon, everybody. Sorry to cut you off, Liz. Apologize. So what this is for in approximately 2 weeks, actually a little less than 2 weeks, the Bowman Field Scoreboard construction will begin. With that, the new scoreboard needs a new foundation. When I went after this, when it was, let me put it this way, back in February, March, when there's snow on the ground, the foundation looked adequate. However, once it melted, I inspected the foundation. There were holes through the bottom of it. I immediately had Larson, who had the contract for design of the scoreboard. There was still money in the contract. I immediately had them do a safety review of a structural review of the scoreboard to make sure it was okay. So we were okay there. But in addition, though, with the scoreboard foundation being as poor quality as it was, we need a new foundation. Daktronics, who we hired back in February of this year for the project for $629,000 as the contractor. They have proposed a new foundation out in left center, which is more preferable for the cross cutters. In addition to the new foundation, all the design work and removal of the existing scoreboard in right center for a grand total of $64,155. And I always get a call right in the middle of here. Anyway, I spoke to Joe Pollock a couple weeks ago. Currently, we don't have money in the budget, in the Bowman Field budget for this. So I ran this by the entire Keller team, and we can in fact use our rescue plan monies if we wanted to for this change order. So that's all I have. And let me know if you have any questions.
Okay, Bonnie, Adam.
John,
Yes.
a couple of questions. Number one, are there any other foreseen change orders on the horizon related to this project that you know of?
Not that I know of. There was some changes on the electrical end, but they had nothing to do with anything foreseen. It was just items that were specific to the scoreboard manufacturer and how it differed slightly from the general and design. So there's actually no financial changes, but this is the only item that was major.
Okay. Stupid question.
Go ahead.
Are without moving it, if we'd keep the scoreboard in the current location but modify that, would that be more cost effective?
You mean as fix the existing foundation? Is that what you're asking? Or?
Yeah, correct.
Unfortunately, where the holes were in the steel columns, so there's an I-beam. I'm trying to draw an I-beam with my hand here.
Yep.
As it goes into the ground, the holes were right at the base where the steel interfaces with the concrete. You can't fix that location.
Okay.
So unfortunately, no.
Okay. That's fine. I thought you looked at that, but I just wanted to confirm. That's fine. Okay. And just to clarify, so what other funding streams were looked at? I know Joe mentioned there's nothing in the budget, but I mean, are there particular areas you looked at, or?
No, I didn't. I just,
Okay.
but I just thought that I was told that there wasn't any money left for this at the moment, so
Okay.
I reached out to Keller, and under the recreation component of the rescue plan,
Okay.
this does in fact fit, if we
Okay.
need to go a route.
Okay. So kind of in line with the ADA stuff, I would feel more comfortable trying to look through the budget, because we are coming in under from what I can tell. I'd feel more comfortable trying to look at a few areas where we could find this money in other places. Rather, I know we have the ARPA funding. I know we've got a lot of it, but I hesitate to use that as an immediate fallback without doing a little bit more homework.
I can do that.
Yeah,
The only-
I
the
would
only
I would
thing-
appreciate that.
The only item, Adam, is the fact that they are actually starting in the next 2 weeks, so the only reason I'm bringing this to you today is because of the 1 month lull we had with the council meetings during the Lily World Series. I would have brought to you, it just came literally the day after the last council meeting, so that's why I had to bring it to you today, so.
No, I understand. I mean,
Yeah.
we still have a few days, so see what you can find out.
Yes.
I think this has kind of been floating out there for a few months, so.
Yeah,
Yeah, so I'd suggest in the future, it may be worth trying to kick the tires a little bit more on items like that in the future, funding wise, but
funding wise, okay.
yeah. So.
Yeah.
And that's all I've got.
I would agree with that. And what obviously we understand that, right? On the scoreboard, in for a penny, in for a pound. We're moving on it. We obviously can't shut the whole project down because the foundation didn't work out. But we need to find that money in the budget somewhere. We're still having discussions about what we'll be spending ARPA funding on. We have not reached any conclusions yet, and I personally am not comfortable with designating something as coming out of ARPA funds when we really haven't even discussed what our broader plan is for that. We're going to have to locate this money in the budget somewhere. And Mr. Pavlak is holding his head in his hands right now, that Adam and I are kicking this to him.
Sorry, Joe. We trust you.
Yeah, but John, I think we need to get an answer of somewhere in the budget that we can pull this funding from in this calendar year, and then when we look at next year's budget and when we look at things that we need to cover, ideally we will be able to say, okay, this is something that we can utilize some ARPA funding for. This is something we can utilize some ARPA funding for to make this a little bit easier. But right now, I don't feel comfortable doing that without a broader plan for that funding than the $64,000 we don't have. So we're going to need to use our ARPA funding for it. So, okay, that said, any further observations, Bonnie?
The only thing I can say is, John, you did, I know when you first presented this, you gave us a figure of 150,000.
Yes.
And
back when this was in the bidding time frame, we were in the $150,000 to $200,000 range for a new foundation. So this is quite a bit of a financial steal.
Good, that's great.
which we appreciate, but I agree with Adam and Liz. Let's find it somewhere else. I really don't want to take care out of the CARES money. I really don't.
Okay. All right. So that said, with that caveat, can I get a motion to send this on to the full body of council?
I'll make a motion. We forward to the full body of council with a positive recommendation with the caveat of having further detail on funding from the general fund or other areas.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Excellent. Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
And you know what? I have not been keeping an eye. Has Kayla Drummond been able to join us?
Kayla's here.
I'm here.
Yes.
Hi, Kayla.
Hi.
All right. The last two items on our agenda are all you. So item number, well, the last two that I think we'll be covering today are all you. Item number 8, resolution to approve the 2021 James David Robinson Cultural Arts Grant Program. Kayla?
So in front of you, you have a resolution for the cultural grant. Only 2 people submitted applications this year. Usually we have about 4 or 5. The Community Arts Center and the Bald Eagle Art League. The Community Arts Center submitted a program for a student summer stock that combines with about 10,000 students are present due to it being COVID, and they did it all online. They reached out to Williamsport, Muncie, Danville, Jersey Shore, all of these school districts who host grades 7 through 12 to be a part of a musical community. They did their program end of July. So their program has already been completed. They're just waiting for funds to be released. The next one was the Bald Eagle Art League, and that was the art program that they had in Ways Garden. That was back in June, I believe.
So all this is after the fact funding, Kayla?
Yes.
Okay. What, have we moved our timeline back for approving this grant? Should we try to move it back forward? I feel sort of bad that we are sort of posthumously funding events.
In years past, the program has to be completed by December 31st of that current year. So we give them that time frame. Usually the Community Arts Center does their Christmas Spectacular. So that's why the time frame is pushed back so far.
Got it. Okay. All right. Okay. So I guess I just, as an organization, if I were organizing an event and not knowing if I was going to get $1,500 or $800, you know, for my event until months after the deadline or months after the event, that would give me some indigestion.
I agree.
Yeah.
Can I
Okay.
ask this question, Kayla? Can this program not be done? And I agree with Liz. Can we not start this in the beginning of the year so that the funding is presented, say, in the spring when some of these events are going on?
So years prior, we had it that the deadline was June 1st, that they had to have everything submitted. But then we can't award any funds unless the actual program has actually been taken place.
Okay, so what you're saying is the event has to have taken place in order for them to get the funds.
Huh.
Boy, okay, that makes it tough.
Yes, it does. Maybe we should look at rewriting that requirement in our in the grant, you know what I mean, in the grant allocation terms. Because I think this is entirely city funded at this point, correct?
Correct.
Yeah.
I really would like to
so-
address this, Liz. I really would, that it, to me, as you said, some of these projects, I mean, especially with the Beal, I mean, that's a program that they can use the funding, ahead of time.
Yeah, exactly. Well, or at least they could use to know what the funding amount is ahead of time. Right.
Kayla, can we sit down and address that beginning in January?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Great. All right, Bonnie, I think Adam had to leave us. Can I get a motion on this item?
I make a motion that we pass this on to the full body of council with a positive recommendation.
I'll second that. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, item number 9 on the agenda, a resolution to approve and renew the partnership agreement between the city and STEP. Excuse me here while okay, City and STEP Americorps for a full-time service member in the Recreation Department. Ms. Drummond?
Okay. So you have in front of you the resolution for STEP Americorps. We just finished a program out partnering with STEP Americorps for my summer camp program. We had a couple of the members come in and substitute for camp counselors, and it went off very well, weather permitted and the heat wave and all the things that we have endured. This Americorps member would come in and help me in my office, as well as at events, as well as reaching out and finding more volunteers to help me with all of the events that we have throughout the city. This would be a full-time member, so their term is from August to July. This would entail that somebody would be here in the office, so be that if I have to go to meetings, somebody's here to answer phone calls, somebody's here to give people the paperwork that they need for the services that they need. Obviously, nobody can be everywhere at once, so this would be that person that would be here.
Got it. And Kayla, so sorry, it was the paperwork that you gave us for this was a little unclear. So I didn't recollect getting a full-time Americorps member last year. But you're saying that you'd like to get one for the coming year.
Correct.
Okay, so what we had was 7 quarter-time Americorps members last year as part of the as part of our summer program. Are we anticipating?
Yeah, it would have been their last year, technically our current calendar year.
Yeah, sorry, this year. But so this would be a totally different type of agreement that would be for a single full-time person.
Correct.
Moving forward within the department. And I know we discussed this last year, but then since we weren't certain exactly what the scope of our 2021 summer was going to look like, we didn't move forward with it at the time. Are we at this point anticipating 2022 being a fully operational pool, everything, all systems go?
Yes.
Recreation?
I have a meeting scheduled this Friday to discuss with Adam as well, to discuss some more things to be done to the pool to get it up and current and running to its full capacity. So our plan for next summer is to go full force pool, summer camps, all of our programs that we usually entail, and as well as all of the events that we host.
Got it. So at this point, we're looking at an ample set of programming that could use an amplified staff. It sounds like. Okay. And the cost of a full-time Americorps member for full-time for the entire year?
It is in there. It should be on your, I want to say, second to the last page.
I know, Kayla, and I apologize. I actually had to run away from the computer.
It's no problem. It's like 8,200, I believe.
8,925.
Okay.
But I just got an email from STEP that states that they are working with the American Rescue Plan to get this fee covered. So it would be at no cost to us if that goes through.
So it would be how much, sorry?
It's the 8,000.
You said they were working to get that covered?
Yeah, because I just got an email that says that would be our cash match that we would pay. But they said that if council or finance, if it was a deal breaker, that they'd waive our fee.
Okay, got it. So you're saying we could potentially get it for free.
Correct.
All right. That's the kind of offer we like to hear.
Absolutely.
Well, guess what, Kayla?
I guess. Actually, though, my second question was going to be, I understand that we have plenty of need for this person during the time that our recreation department is super active, that 6-month period in the summer. What do we anticipate this person doing for the next 6 months, however?
So if that person comes on now, I would be teaching them everything in office wise, going over all the paperwork, all the questions that most of the community asks, give them basically that cheat sheet. So if somebody calls and wants this is what you do. This is the paperwork. This is where it goes. This is who you pay a check out to, X, Y, and Z, as well as taking them around, showing them all the parks, showing them that what we do, how the department is ran, and getting their hands wet with things in the office and training them on how to do things now. So that way, when summer comes, they're not ambushed with everything.
Got it. Although we're talking about pennies to a certain extent here or there, but I would hope that that we wouldn't need a full 6 months to do that. So it would seem to me that we should hopefully make some other plans for the person's time for some portion of the intervening months. And I'm not quite certain what that would need to be, but I think if we're looking to amplify our rec department by another full-time individual, that's 40 hours a week for the next 6 months with no particular recreation activities in sight aside from a parade. Then I think we should have a larger discussion about other things that we can work on in the rec department in the winter months, perhaps. Bonnie, sorry, I kind of took over this conversation.
Oh, Kayla, do you have somebody in mind for this position already?
Lori from Americorps has reached out to me and says she has 3 people ready to be interviewed for here. But I told her to hold off until we hear what you guys would like to proceed with.
Well, it's kind of, what you're saying, what you would like this person to do. I don't think would take 6 months to accomplish. Okay, I really don't. And I know, we go through this every year, Kayla, we really do, as far as having an Americorps person coming in at the slow time of what the slow time is for the city. What's also in this resolution is the city of Americorps have partnered in the 2020-21 service term for the use of 7 quarter-time service members in the rec department. This does not include that at all, right?
Correct. That is not.
You're just going with the 1 full-time person. I just don't, like I said, we cross this bridge every year, and I don't know. I feel very uncomfortable with it because the person that we need to help you should start in February when you're trying to get your programs in place, trying to get everything else in place. I just can't see where 6 months, it would take 6 months to train somebody to go through the parks, go through the paperwork and things like that. That in itself should only be a few weeks. It really should. So I do feel uncomfortable with this. Kayla, has there been any recreation meetings at all?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, we really haven't gotten any meetings, minutes from these meetings.
I will submit them to you today.
Okay, because we don't know what's going on in that department. So, I feel very uncomfortable with this, Liz.
Okay. I think, Bonnie, that what both you and I are saying is that we don't know that there's a need within the department for a full-time person, but perhaps recreation now falls under streets and parks, and there might be a need within the streets and parks department for some, I'm not certain. I think that we need to figure out something else that this individual will work on for the next few months before we really get into the heavy training period for the recreation elements. I would love to see us have a full year recreation program that's extremely active with cross-country skiing in the parks and things like that in the winter. That'd be terrific, but we don't have that. We really have a 6-month recreation program. So I guess what I'm asking, Kayla, is can we figure out activities, things that this person can work on that perhaps are of help elsewhere in the streets and parks department for the next 6 months, so that we're actually making use of a full-time person for 40 hours per week for the year. And because I don't, it's a great deal. Americorps is a terrific deal. But I just, I think that we owe to that person who we are hiring then full-time for a year, and to the Americorps program, to train that person to work within the city in much the same way that you trained to work within the city, Kayla. I think you were always part-time, correct?
No, I was full-time.
Oh, you were full-time the whole time? I thought you started as a part-time employee in rec.
I started as full-time.
Okay. Then were you just part of the year?
No, ma'am. I was all year, August to August.
All right.
That's Americorps' term. I was full-time. I came in with Jesse in February, but I still came in as a full-time member, and then she took it to council and renewed for full-time from August to August until eventually my terms were done, and then I was just hired on.
And what did you do in the winter with Jesse, that second winter that you were with us? Or that it would have been your first winter with us because you started in February.
Correct. We I did the planning for all of this fall things that we do, which would have been Halloween, the Christmas parade, Santa visits, Festival of Lights in Brandon Park. And once those were complete, we were filing papers, doing grants, researching grants, all of that.
Got it. So that's part of what we're anticipating this person doing. Then.
Correct.
Not just training for 2022's year. Okay, that makes more sense to me. I think, Bonnie, help me understand what would help you feel more comfortable with this. Maybe if we had a schedule of things that this person was going to work on a weekly, monthly basis.
Exactly. I think there should be, I'm like you, Liz. I would like to see more activity in the city, be it summer, spring, winter, and fall. The other thing too, Kayla, from what I understand, my last conversation with you was before Williamsport Welcomes the World. You are working with Nick Grimes as far as getting a charge card system put in. Is that still on board, or are we still working on that project? Because the chamber took care of processing the vendors for Williamsport Welcomes the World. So are you still pursuing that, I hope?
Yes, I am. Yes.
Are we using his judgment? Is there going to be something that's going to have to come out of the budget for that? How is that, you're going to have to bring that to us eventually, but that's another program that is going to be a learning process also.
Absolutely. And from what I was told is I was put, my previous software was canceled because it was not doing what we expected it to do. And I was told that I was going to be getting on board with the city and the tax office uses for credit card and payments. But then everything was put on hold again on my end.
Well, it's something that shouldn't be put on hold because that, like I told, when we talked a few weeks ago, Kayla, we talked about the credit card could be used for pool programs, so many other things that it can be used for, and it keeps a better track of where the money is.
Absolutely.
I would feel better if Liz, like I said, making sure that we step forward with more programs. I think it would behoove us if we can get more kids out in the parks and enjoying more in any kind of weather.
Yeah, I would concur, Bonnie. I think that would be a huge advantage to the city's programming. We need to get people out of doors. We need to get people active within the community, and I think that would be huge.
Even if they have a snowball fight, for God's sakes.
Shall we once again forward this with no recommendation, but ask Ms. Drummond to give us more information about the planned schedule for this person and what they'll be doing within the department?
Right, and if we can get this, if they're going to take care of the match and not come out of our funds, if we can work that out, Kayla, that would be fantastic.
I'm working on it as we speak.
Okay.
Fantastic. All right, then.
I make a motion that we pass this on with no recommendation.
Okay, I will second that. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. And Kayla, thanks for bearing with us. I know that we, I think part of the issue that you're having with us is right, that Jesse did bring you to us the first time in February, and all of us in February could completely understand what somebody in the rec department was going to do for the next several months. And then we got to review it in August and say, yeah, she's doing a great job. We'll bring her back, But the difficulty here is to hire in August and not really know. I guess the thing is, as an employer, you sort of set a standard for how much you're expecting of an employee.
Right. I understand.
Employed with
Lost you, Liz.
that
We're losing you.
to realize the full value, because that person will have gotten used to giving X, as the effort they put into
You are fading in and out, Liz.
to really utilize. Can you hear me, Bonnie?
You're fading in and out.
Okay, I apologize. I think my phone's running on Wi-Fi, and I walked away from my Wi-Fi. All right, but yeah. That said, we'll see you on Thursday, Kayla.
All right, thank you.
Okay. All right. Now we have one other item on our agenda. Mr. Pavlak, I'm assuming that it won't bother you terribly if we decide that we're going to discuss the second quarter finance reports 2 weeks from now.
I have about a half-hour presentation. I can start whenever.
Joe Pavlak. We don't need your sense of humor right now, man.
We can
I've
hold
got a
off.
woman waiting in the background here for Public Works.
There's another piece that I didn't get out to you last week, so that's